first time I ever saw Anderson's. I was in my late 20s. I wasn't from Buffalo, and I didn't really know what. I never heard of Custard or beef on wick, but I learned later, completely different than what I first saw.
I started working very young, as we all did, because Mom and Dad were there, and so the whole family wanted to be there.
I'm the youngest and the most handsome and, and the most fun.
When I was 12 or 13, I was working at Anderson's, and people would come up to the counter and they would say, "How old are you?" And I said, "I'm old enough. What would you like?" And Dad just agreed with the farmer's rule. It means you're part of the family, and that means all you kids are working. And I'd lollygag and go have a Pepsi with the friends and, do things. And my sister, Annie, my older sister, she pulled me aside and she said, "Nels, this is Anderson's, and you need to do what Dad says. And that means get here right after school." So knowing that you're an Anderson, and that's kind of means something. Mom and Dad were in the Bronx, and they went to church. She had this Swedish Covenant church or something, and there was a guy there called Charlie Erickson. He made ice cream equipment, and he came up to them, and I picture it like this. He says, "Carl and Greta, I think you'd be very good to run an ice cream shop." Dad came home and talked to my grandfather, his dad, and borrowed $5,000 from him, borrowed $5,000 from the carpenters and the plumbers and the electricians, and they set up a place, Mom and Dad, on White Plains Boulevard in the Bronx. And they did okay. They worked there 1 year. At the end of that year, my aunt had a procedure and had to go have a spinal tap, and she became paralyzed. And then he says, "Life's too short. Let's go home. Let's be around family." So they came back, and they set up a place on Kenmore Avenue and Englewood. They put it by the road because they wanted to get the Bronx feel. Charlie Erickson comes into town, and he sees it and says, "Carl, what are you doing? This is not the Bronx. This is Buffalo. People love their cars, and they want to be around their cars. There's no parking here." That was 46, 47, and then 53 is when they opened on Sheridan Drive. And they put a place on an acre lot, and they had plenty of parking. And for some reason, Dad never wanted to put stripes in the lot. I couldn't figure that out. But anyway, and they used to have old cars and different things.
And no tables. Dad said, "No tables. We do not want to keep those clean." Everybody sat in their cars, in the back of their cars.
It basically was a dessert place. So you had your frozen custard. It went into the 60s, but they started to say, "Hey, listen, we need to fill in these gaps." Lunchtime was a gap, dinner time was a gap, and so they wanted to add something. So they brought in the roast beef then. And you'd walk in, and there's just a counter there. And I think they had eggs, orange juice, and milk.
Many years we would have two sides of the business. Early spring or late fall, when it got cold, the roast beef end would really carry this business. And then in the summertime, ice cream places make their money in the summer. We were always busy. It was lunch, and then you had people getting cones in the afternoon. Being the dual concept thing, we were busy throughout the whole day. And I said, man, we probably wouldn't have made it this far if we were just ice cream. And they didn't want to be just another hot dog hamburger place. My vote was pizza, which
It didn't work.
they never listened to me anyways, thank goodness. Mom wasn't there quite as much. Dad was older then. And I think it was probably I was such a good employee that he actually didn't yell at me very much. So it was pretty good. And Mom always came in, at night when it got busy. She got the one phone call at home to come into work. And she'd come in and wait on all the guests because everybody loved Mom.
I was in high school, so I had been working a few years by then. And we always did two people at a window. And Mom and I were working side by side. I feel this jab in my ribs. What? I literally, what? It was my mother looking at me and saying, "You're not smiling, Holly." That's how important that smile was. And she preached it, she lived it. And that was so influential in us, in my life as I went forward. So Mom would say to these young people when she was even as late, she was over 100 and she was still doing this, and she would say, smile to our guests.
My dad and I'm a lot like my dad, so we had our opportunities to butt heads, but he was the boss. You know, you understood that.
Dad would be slicing, always slicing, because it was the most important job in the place, he said, to get that right for our guests.
He's funny, but he also had this, I am the boss, and if you don't do what I say, the way I say to do it. He said there's two ways of doing it. There's the right way and there's Carl's way. And Carl's way is the way you did it. It was a little challenging. Mom was softer.
My father was definitely a man of few words when he was under stress. And my mother seemed to know what he needed. Mom was the helper. She was the softer one. Dad was the one who gave orders. Mom was usually on the dessert side making cones. Mom could make the perfect cone each and every time.
I didn't work with Greta very often. She did a lot of stuff at home. Carl was there from time to time, and he was a pretty much of a focused person. And he could be difficult, but you could count on him to be honest, with his expectations. And he had high expectations. Nothing I wasn't used to, because I'd spent a lot of time in the Army, so he was, not that brutal. And he was just a World War II guy like the rest of them, so they all had the same attitude to me. He had a soft side too.
When we were younger, half the fun thing was waiting on guests. So one day I was working, and my good friend and worker, Paul Williams, we were working, and he said, somebody's in the back that wants to talk to you. And I going, what? What are you talking about? Go in the back. And I go in back, and there's this girl back there. And I walked back there and said, oh, hi. She ended up to be my wife.
I can remember waiting on people, and your job is to take one person and say, hi, how can I help you? You greet each person, as they're the only person on the planet.
The guests were great. That was why I enjoyed doing the window. Yeah, as a young person, there was always a lot of fun because other young people were there. But yeah, the people were great. You don't do this business unless you really like people.
Okay, so in '84, Mom and Dad, I don't know why it was a surprise to us, but they basically just sort of said, hey, we're done. We're 65. We are off to Florida. And we're going, whoa, okay. And they said, why don't you take it over or else we're selling it? Nels decided, he was going to get married and go back to school. And Nels sort of ran the show back then. So he was off. Kirk was going to UB grad school.
And you were accountant.
I was a bad accountant, so I said, I guess I'll do it. So we came and we made very few changes. Like, I think we should have tables outside for people to sit on. That was a big change because we never had tables. I don't know when exactly, but we started French fries. Because Friars and my dad didn't get along. So when my dad left, let's get fries.
Carl and Greta wanted out. They really didn't want anything to do. When they handed it over, they handed it over. When Carl was running it, it was Carl, and then there was the rest of us. So we knew who the boss was, and that was all that mattered. When we took over, it was like, well, we had roles to play, but it didn't start to change until we made a decision to expand from the one company at Sheridan Drive. And then our roles began to migrate into different parts. So it wasn't simple at the beginning of who does what. We all kind of looked at it and took on different roles as time went on.
We all had a different role, and it seemed to work.
Kirk, I don't know if we would have even gone as quickly anyway to Main Street to open up without him thinking ahead, planning it, and doing the details of that.
We all ended up working the business, and it was a lot of fun back then. We had lots of energy, and we were young, and it was fun. But we soon found out that we're going to kill each other unless we expand this thing, because we got one little store and 3 families we're supporting. And
Well, really 4, because we were supporting mom and dad.
and we thought, oh, let's expand. Where do we go? And my dad always had thoughts of, oh, Williamsville. We're going to open another store in Williamsville, which they never did because they were too busy. We ended up finding a piece of land way east in Williamsville, outside the village, and we bought it. And it took us 2 years to get it built here because the neighbors weren't too thrilled about an Anderson's being built. But eventually, because it was owned properly, we did. From day one, it was a home run. It's funny because we said, okay, build it like it looks like a bank building, because when we don't make it, we can just sell it to a bank.
Yeah, we kind of did do it.
Yeah. But we were pretty surprised and relieved that it started off so well. We said, oh, this is sort of fun opening stores. And we said, let's open some more. So then we opened a thing on UB campus for a couple years. Then we said, no, this probably isn't the spot we want to be. So then we found an old building on Union Road and took the advice of all our contractors saying, oh, let's build one by the Galleria Mall. Then we said, okay, we've done enough of this, and Kirk sort of thought up the idea of franchising. So that's the route we went.
If you franchise a concept, it's not necessarily the decision to just grow a bunch more stores. It's a way to distribute your product. In order to franchise, you have to systematize, and you have to put everything down on paper so somebody who's never done it before can learn how to do it, so that when we open another store, we knew what we had to do. And we did find that there was an awful lot of interest for our concept of roast beef and frozen custard and ice cream from all over the country. And that's because Buffalonians, wherever they move, they love to remember Buffalo and all the good things about Buffalo. I got hundreds and hundreds of inquiries about wanting to do an Anderson, and realized the business of selling custard and handing the cone to the person across the counter is completely different than creating a business for others to run. Or we would either needed to bring in other people to do it, or just kind of stop at this point in time. So we did expand, and the technology these days is completely different than what we were working with. Computers were just getting started. It's fascinating to see all of the changes, but how important they are as you incorporate them into, in making this work. It was about a 10-year ride that we had of expansion. Ice cream is hugely important in our company. There was a day, and it was in this shop, and I'm working the shop. A man or a woman walks in, I think it's a guy, and he goes, says, I'd like an ice cream cone, please. I said, well, we don't sell ice cream, but we do have frozen custard, He goes, well, I don't want frozen custard, I'd like ice cream. Okay, thank you. And he walked out the door. So we had done all this work, built a great location, a great place, great marketing, to bring a guy all the way in and ask for a product that he thought we had, because it looked like we had it, because everybody thought we had it, and we didn't have it.
We were involved with this organization. It's a national organization, and there's a lot of small businesses that get involved. We decided to, at one of these conferences, are we going to do the short course for ice cream? So Ben & Jerry's did the same short course at Penn State, and we learned more about making ice cream. And then for me, I'm sitting there going, well, we need to market this. People have to watch us make ice cream downstairs. I thought people would be able to see it through the window. And then I said, oh, that's a silly idea.
But ice cream became part of the franchises too, because they had to buy our ice cream.
Right, which helped.
But you were making it for our 3 stores.
Yeah, and I can remember the Dodge Colt that I had, and I was wrapping it with blankets and bringing it out to the place. And one time it popped open.
The back of your car.
Then we went over to Union. Now the bad problem with Union, and like Kirk says, every time you do something, you realize there's some other problems. The bad part was everything was down in the basement. And then you had to take all this finished product upstairs. And there's no elevator, there's no, this is just you just hauling it upstairs. So that was one of the major reasons why we wanted to move it. And we moved it over to Sheridan Drive. It was a garage that was transformed into
that all transitioned when we started adding all these franchises. So you were making ice cream not only for our 3 company stores, but then for 3 franchisees.
We designed our stores around the ice cream cabinets then, which, had never been a part of
The
the
original.
original.
Percentage-wise of ice cream to custard.
Okay.
I mean, it wasn't 50-50, but it's
No.
like 40-60
And the
in
new
desserts.
Now I don't know what it is.
and the new stores were always more ice cream than our original stores. Always been an equal partner, but I came in, I was doing a lot of the background work. When Kirk retired, I took more of a prominent role. One big thing that happened in the middle of all that was the all-natural beef came in. Nels is our project. He took the role of being creative. And so he traveled around, he went out to California and really researched the all-natural beef, because the processing of beef in the United States changed dramatically. That was tremendous change for our product line. Kirk retired, and then Nels came and wanted to retire. So Keith and I are looking at each other going, oh, brother. And then Keith retired, adding the expertise of technology and management and marketing and training. It's been phenomenal, though, to see so many people in their thing and do it so well. They take on the same values. Mom and Dad really had some pretty simple values, but very strong. The people involved now are carrying those values.
She would always ship stuff to our kids, wherever they might be, and the relatives and stuff that wanted it. The screech of tape going over the box so many times in my ears is like, So yes, the way that shipping came about was with Miss Holly.
We started getting requests years ago. I don't know. I think of 15 at least, because so many Buffalonians, which is my generation, were moving to Florida or moving somewhere to retire.
But then I remember, okay, Kirk, we got to go over to FedEx now and take our 4 boxes.
And now there's a team to do it, even though every box is packed by hand. So we're really proud of that. You don't often meet anyone who hasn't heard about us, but it is 80 years. We all have claim to fame that none of us are 80.
Well, we all have our strengths, right? But I always made the best cones. So let's have a little competition making a cone downstairs, just to prove that, I gave something to them.
You haven't lost it? You haven't lost it?
Hey, yeesh, I don't know. I've been out of it for a few years.
Pressure's on.
Hey, do you guys remember when Mom and Dad started in the Bronx? You don't remember, you weren't there,
No,
I
I
wasn't
was
either.
not there.
I remember.
But they did a batch machine, and they would empty that into a barrel and then scoop it out.
And then we started making cones out of these pump machines,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Yeah,
And,
there you go.
And that's why we're here. 'Cause
That's
we're
why we're
doing the cone competition. I want you to remember the first cone you may ever made.
Oh boy,
And
that's
then-
a long time ago, Keith.
How many of these guys made their first cones with Anderson?
Yeah.
Pretty
thousands,
wild, right?
Probably thousands now.
Okay.
Well, I know it's thousands.
Okay, now that I got you distracted, we can do the cone. Okay, ready?
Oh,
Hey, do we have the loop? Come on. Nice cutoff, Kirk.
to our communities that have supported us all these years, and to all of our employees that have worked and contributed.
Cheers!
To 80 years.